Recently, the Russian fifth-generation Su-57 has attracted a lot of attention. Various detailed photos have also been published by netizens. One of the most eye-catching is its ammunition compartment. Take a closer look at this photo. This is the Su-57's ammunition compartment. However, it actually has a 3 to 5 centimeter gap. There is no doubt that this will seriously affect the overall stealth performance of the Su-57. What about the fifth-generation stealth? Can such a big crack really hide? Today, let's talk about the Su-57 and the big crack. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the Soviet Air Force began to develop a new generation of fighters and hoped to serve in the 1990s. The plan was named I-90 at the time. The main purpose is to fight the advanced tactical fighter of the United States. According to the requirements of the Soviet Air Force, the new fighter needs to have a stronger air superiority combat ability and has the ability to stealth and ground attack the MiG-29 and Su-27. In 1983, according to the above requirements, the MiG Design Bureau launched the MiG 1.44. This fighter integrates many features of the fifth generation of stealth fighters, such as ultra-mobility, ultra-pilot, and advanced aerial electronic equipment. The radar signal is weak to a certain extent, but because the Soviet Union has begun to go downhill at this time, in addition to the blockade of the Soviet Union by Europe and the United States, many Soviet equipment is gradually lagging behind the times. In the experimental stage, the MiG 1.44 problem was frequent, and the plan was never selected by the Soviet Air Force. Later, the Sukhoi Design Bureau launched a more stable S-32 project. Later, based on the S-32, the Su-37 was created and later changed to the Su-47. Until the 1990s, both sides could not completely eliminate each other. But at this time, they didn't have to be in a hurry to eliminate each other, because the Soviet Union was eliminated first. On December 25, 1991, the Soviet Union announced its disintegration. The original plan to serve the fifth-generation fighter in the 1990s disintegrated with the Soviet Union. After the Soviet Union's disintegration, funds in all areas were severely short. In order not to go bankrupt, MiG and Sukhoi had to sell their assets. Various plans were also canceled or delayed. In 1999, Russia, which gradually slowed down from the Soviet disintegration, began to announce a new generation of fighter jets. Later, the Russian Defense Ministry launched the PAKFA project, also known as the I-21 project. In April 2001, the project was officially launched. But due to Russian financial difficulties, the project planned to produce a multi-purpose fifth-generation fighter to replace the Su-27 and MiG-29 at the same time in order to reduce costs and reduce expenses. In order to further save costs, the size of the aircraft should be between the Su-27 and the MiG-29. The normal takeoff weight should also be less than the MiG-29's 28.6 tons and the Su-47's 26.8 tons. And the final product of the project is the well-known Su-57. I'm sure you all know that the soldiers here don't sell their assets. It can be said that the birth of the Su-57 was due to financial tensions and various compromises. Later, the MiG Aircraft Company reintroduced the MiG 1.44 project, but it was denied by the Russian Defense Ministry, saying that the project was seriously behind schedule and completely incompatible with the American F-22 and was no longer suitable for future air combat. The MiG 1.44 project was canceled. Those people in the Ministry of Defense are simply dreaming. What is the cost of the American F-22? Can we compare it with them? We don't have the equipment they use. Let alone the equipment. Even if we had the equipment, would our Ministry of Defense be able to produce an F-22? The Russian Defense Ministry hopes that the fifth-generation fighter jet can be compared with the American F-22. In the face of the proposals submitted by major airline companies, the Russian Defense Ministry feels that they are not good enough, so the project will not be able to be promoted. In 2002, the design candidates of Sukhoi, MiG, and Yakovlev were chosen by Sukhoi 1's T-50. At the same time, in order to reduce technical risk and share costs, to fill the real-time flight period before the new fighter was commissioned, some related technologies such as propulsion and aviation were applied to the Su-27, which became the Su-35's. Therefore, it can be said that the Su-35's is a transitional model before the Su-57 was commissioned. In contrast, it can also be said that the Su-35's is a low-end, no-hide version of the Su-57. On August 8, 2007, the Russian news agency quoted the original statement of the Russian Air Force General Commander Alexander Zelin. The first prototype of the T-50 has been built, and the flight test will begin. It was not until 2009 that the design of the T-50 was officially recognized by the government. There were already 3 prototypes at the time. The T-50 was called the Hunger Project because the Russian military only provided 20% military support to the research department. Sukhoi, which contracted the project, not only did not get a penny, but also needed to provide an additional 40% of the funding. Even so, it only raised 60% of the funding. As for the remaining 40%, there was no way to find it. In 2012, the Russian Defense Ministry will buy the first 10 test aircraft and then equip 60 standard models in 2016. The first test aircraft will be equipped with the existing technical engine. The expected service life of the Su-57 is 30 to 35 years. In August 2009, Alexander Zelin admitted that the problem was related to the engine and had not been solved and was conducting technical research. Although the first test flight date was delayed many times, the Su-57 was still the first test flight on January 29, 2010 in the city of Gyeongking by the Amur River. The second prototype was tested for 44 minutes on March 3, 2011. Both prototypes did not have radar and weapon control systems installed. In 2012, the Su-57 was tested 100 times in total and was tested more than 20 times. The third prototype was tested in August 2012 and was tested for active electronic scanning radar. The fourth prototype took off on December 12, 2012. A month later, it was tested with other aircraft in Moscow. On October 27, 2013, the fifth prototype began to take off. But on February 21, 2014, the engine caught fire and was seriously damaged after landing and was later repaired with the parts of the sixth prototype. On April 27, 2016, the sixth prototype took off for the first time. In February 2018, the Russian military ordered 2 Su-57s to go directly to the Syrian battlefield for practical testing. Compared with other stealth fighters, the Su-57's fuselage and wings have been aligned to reduce the radar radiation interface. The front and rear control surfaces of the wings and the edges of the huge legged edges of the cover have been carefully arranged to reduce the direction of radar feedback. The load-bearing weapons are stored in the weapon compartment, and the antenna is inserted into the cover to maintain the appearance required for stealth, and only allows self-used radar frequencies to pass. When designing, the S-shaped intake duct was considered to completely block the engine blades, but in the end, the curved intake duct was chosen to block most of the engine fans. The remaining fan blades are installed into the intake duct's radar wave to block it, so that the fans are completely concealed, and the intake duct is also covered with a thin layer of X-ray material. The fuselage uses radar X-ray material to reduce radar feedback. The cockpit cover is coated with the gaps between the fuselage components are sealed with conductive materials to reduce the radar feedback. Due to the large number of fusion materials and the number of parts in the fuselage, the Su-27, while being lighter and easier to manufacture. The cockpit cover is made of composite material with 70 to 90 nanometers of metal oxidation, which can improve the suction power up to 30%, while reducing UV rays and heat radiation to the driver. The design of the Su-57 focuses on the stealth effect of the first half, and most of the feedback design is based on the front. Compared to the F-22, which does not emphasize the stealth ability of the radar interface area of the Su-57 is 1/3 of the Su-27. The low detection of the Su-57 is only effective for high-frequency radars. Such radars are low-frequency radars with sharp scattering and resonance. For example, weather radars or warning radars can detect all sizes like the Su-57. This type of radar is heavier, more likely to be detected by the Su-57, and less likely by the F-22. In addition, the Su-57 is of propellant, which can be used for various purposes. In addition, the Su-57 is troubled by its stealth capabilities, and its manufacturing process can only be said to be lagging. The modern stealth technology has been developed for decades, but Russia has not fully mastered the low detection capability of the 5th-generation plane. Compared to the F-22, the shortcomings of the Su-57 are obvious. In the area of stealth performance, the Russian Su-57 fighter jet, which was exposed this time, is not well crafted, and maybe because this Su-57 fighter jet is not used for stealth tests, nor is it a mass-produced Su-57, but an early prototype. The number is T-50-4, which is the fourth prototype. The production of the prototype is quite particular, and the test use of each prototype is not certain, and not all of them will reach the level of the complete body. What was exposed this time was just a prototype, not a mass-produced one, and it cannot be fully believed that all Su-57s are rough in craftsmanship. If the Su-57 meets the F-22, everyone must have their own opinion. The U.S. National Interest website has published an article speculating that the Su-57 will fight the F-22. The Russian F-22 has been in service for nearly 20 years since it was announced in December 2005. It will combine stealth, exciting mobility, and powerful sensors. There is no doubt that it is the king of the sky. The Russian Su-57 is Russia's fifth-generation fighter jet. What kind of sparks can the two meet? From the perspective of aerodynamics, the Su-57 is at the top level. The initial version of the Su-57 was driven by an improved version of the Su-35's engine. This engine is called AL-41F1. The single-stage power-to-weight ratio can reach 14.5 tons, which is far superior to the original AL-31 engine. And the second-stage version of the aircraft will be powered by a new engine called Product 30. This engine is said to produce about 17 tons of thrust. The maneuverability may be slightly superior to the F-22. Russian experts point out that the Su-57 has two major advantages in terms of maneuverability. One is that it inherits the Su-27's centripetal maneuvering layout. It has increased the number of vortices. The second is that it uses larger movable struts. It can participate in aircraft balance and further increase the number of vortices. In general, the maximum number of vortices of the Su-57 is higher than that of the F-22. At the same time, the load capacity is also not high. In addition, the Su-57's thrust-to-weight ratio engine can only move in the direction of buoyancy, but it may have a certain external light installation angle. The thrust of the engine is conducive to the rotation and maneuverability of the aircraft. And in terms of supersonic navigation and supersonic maneuverability, the two are basically equivalent. From the engine layout, the Su-57 has a larger rear strut. Due to the use of a three-dimensional design, its outer wing is significantly smaller. The horizontal surface is smaller, which is also conducive to reducing resistance. The F-22 has a super strong, small thrust-to-weight ratio, large thrust-to-weight ratio engine, to make up for the relatively simple engine layout. The F-22 also has a certain advantage in supersonic flight. Of course, mobility is not omnipotent. For the fifth-generation aircraft, stealth is one of the main features. In this regard, the F-22 maintains a relatively large advantage. The F-22 can be said to be the benchmark for stealth design in combat aircraft. It is innovative in many areas. The S-shaped intake duct is used to cover the largest reflector of the aircraft. The windshield is processed with a one-piece coating. The appearance is also guided by stealth. In addition, its design processing is very good. For example, the movement of the golden wing and the negative wing. The connection between the wing, the negative wing, and the main wing is covered. The opening of the mouth is processed with a saw. Let the radar reflection wave reflect in several directions with a limited orientation. In addition, the United States has accumulated years of technology in stealth paint and stealth structure. The F-22's radar scattering area may be the smallest in the line. In comparison, the stealth performance of the Su-57 is not optimistic. The Su-57 only uses a certain amount of radar scattering area reduction measures. The data provided by Russia is that the radar scattering area of the aircraft is 0.5 square meters. Some three-generation improved radar scattering areas are lower than this value. The biggest problem with the stealth design of the Su-57 is that it recently adopted a straight design, not the usual S-shaped design of the fifth-generation aircraft. Although this design is more efficient recently, but due to the engine, the fan blade has no cover. It will greatly increase the area of the front radar reflection. In addition, Su-57 does not pay much attention to some details. For example, the edge of the movable edge and the wing. There will be a relatively large radar eye shot without the use of closed wind cover measures. The cockpit cover uses a two-piece design. Seal the outer frame to trigger the radar wave eye shot, etc. due to the larger radar scattering area of the Su-57. In theory, the F-22 can see the Su-57 first and use the AIM-120D missile to attack it. In the end, who do you think will win the battle? Welcome to leave a comment in the comment area. Like and subscribe my channel. See you next time.